The elf then begins chanting something while he moves his hand around in circles. A few seconds later, the chant is a large hydra with 6 heads made entirely of wind appears in front of us, blocking our way towards the elementalist. Even though the monster is technically made of air, we can still tell that it's supposed to be a hydra because of the way the sunlight is reflecting from its back. I thought we were fighting at night actually for some reason. Everyone step back there and says, I'll try to see if I can absorb the air element out of the hydra with my sword. Actually, that won't be necessary, I say. I understood now. I understood what they were talking about just now, and the hydra is just an illusion. We can simply go through it, nothing will happen to us. Are you absolutely sure about this? Yes, I guarantee it, I say. If it were some bluff, they would have talked in the common language and not in an obscure dialect that we normally have no way of understanding. Well, let's see if you're right then, Darren says as he blocks a wind blade with his shield and then charges straight through the hydra along with Layla. I fly through the illusion as well. As we get close to the air elementalist, we begin to flank him. The elf tries to push us away from him again, but Layla manages to sneak up behind him. She runs a dagger through the back of his throat. Before he has time to react, once Layla removes her dagger, the elf puts his hand on his neck and trying to stop the flow of the blood, but there was just too much of it pouring out of him to be able to do anything. Not long afterwards, the elf loses the strength from his legs and he falls flat on the ground with nothing left to do but to slowly bleed out and die. As we are trying to decide what to do next, the man in black robes that ambushed us suddenly teleports behind Kate, attempting to stab her with a knife. Kate managed to get out of the way. Another black-robed man is creating weapons out of thin air, making them fly. Yeah, this is just the illusion again. Illuna, then he starts teleporting around, waving his daggers. Kate is busy blocking the flying weapons. He's also making sure to keep the pressure on the bastard. After dodging a few times, the black-robed man's attack a few times. Illuna suddenly said, yeah, we have read this, definitely. So it was this is a slightly different line. So it was an illusion after all. I had considered the possibility that I wasn't completely sure. It was also possible that Kate killed the wrong guy before. Glad to see they figured it out by themselves. The dead black-robed guy confirmed dead. The whole battlefield, yeah, we assessed the situation. Yeah, the boulders are being constantly produced. We can't really do anything about that. We don't have magical sense. All of a sudden, the rocks in the sky begin to move. The boulders up in the sky begin moving. I tell Kate, I think they're going to need some magical barriers soon. I make a wind barrier. We need to get closer first. As soon as we create the wind barrier, I'd rather keep focusing on attacking the captain till one barrier fails. Can't you see? Yes, I have to consider. Yeah, so this is the point where we said, like, let's not go for the ice dome because that might reduce the amount of attacks on the captain. But technically, Layla and Darren are free now, so they can attack the captain. So I say it's still worth it. We are going to need every possible defense against that many rocks. I say it's still worth it. Yeah, maybe you're right. Kate says, I'll try to make the ice dome thinner for starters. I'll reinforce it more depending on how many rocks the earth elementals throw at us. Hey, Darren and Layla, I shout, come over here fast. We're making ice dome to defend against the rocks above. When Darren and Layla hear me, they come running towards us, and once they get inside, Melindra casts wind barrier. Kate creates her ice dome, as Darren uses his shield to make a barrier of his own on top of that for good measure. Do you think your barriers will work against any of the rocks? Yeah, it's the magical barrier. Yeah, magical rocks. Well and good, and then he tests our defenses. Another managed to get a protective barrier. He then have gotten better idea. He's on 50 rocks, some of the rocks, and that's a relief. Once they hit Darren's semi-transparent barrier, the majority of the boulders slide off. Yes, same. I'm glad to see I was mistaken. This is the point we usually either need to have toughness or have the ice barrier. We have the ice barrier this time, so we'll be fine. We'll get to finish my chain of thought. 2 smaller boulders pass through Darren's shield with ease, although they get stopped by Kate's ice dome, which is right underneath. You think those 2 boulders are not created magically? Kate says. Kate asks Darren. Yeah, they were almost certainly regular rocks, Darren says. They wouldn't be passed through my barrier so easily otherwise. Okay. Kate says, I'll just fortify my ice dome a little more. In that case, there are more boulders like that in the next match. It won't be easy to keep up the pressure on the captain while I do this, though. Don't be too surprised if you manage to retaliate soon. Actually, Kate, Darren says as he points towards the sky, where about 100 or more huge boulders are preparing to rain down on us. I think you should give up on the captain and put everything you've got into fortifying the ice dome. My barriers are beginning to reach its limit, and wind barriers aren't all that good against rock in general. Your dome may well become our very last line of defense soon. Very well, Kate says. I will focus all of my effort on defense then. Let's hope we won't come to regret this decision later. She then begins to pour as much magical energy into her ice dome as she can, making it a lot more opaque in the process. Harder to now see what is going on outside the shelter, but once Darren's barrier fails, the boulder starts to hitting the ice dome. We can easily tell exactly what's happening. The rocks are just keep coming one after the other, but Kate's reinforced ice is still holding strong. You can almost sense the earth elementalist's frustration as he keeps hitting the dome across its whole surface, trying to find any kind of weak point. He even sends 10 consecutive boulders at the same exact spot once in the hope that Kate won't be able to recreate and reinforce the ice fast enough to block them. In the 8, none of this tactics works. Although Kate's dome looks like it is ready to crumble at any moment, the rocks from the sky are no longer falling. Presumably because after all this time, the earth elementalist finally ran out of ammo. Just as we're about to relax a little, the ice dome above us gets completely destroyed, and then we can feel the captain's aura pushing us into the ground with a greater force than ever before. By the way, what are Gontok and Hardwick doing? And they're still fighting somewhere. Even under these conditions, Darren still somehow manages to cancel the invisible force by moving his sword very slightly to the right. He then quickly gets up, making a rush for the captain, while all the bolters and the rubble around us that were magical created are now slowly fading into thin air. The captain of the guard puts both his hands in front of him, uses aura manipulation technique to push Darren away while he uses the pressure from before to immobilize the rest of us. The next thing that the captain tries to do is pull Darren's sword away from him, but he ends up pulling on his whole arm along with the sword because the weapon simply won't detach itself from the palm of his hand. "You're using aura manipulation to glue your sword to your hand?" the captain asks Darren, somehow surprised. "It looks like you've learned a few tricks since the last time I saw you." However, Darren's wrist suddenly begins to twist in a very unnatural way as he struggles to suppress a scream of pain. After a few seconds, the sword finally unglues itself from his palm and flies into the hand of the captain. "Anyone can clearly see that you're still a novice at aura manipulation," the captain continues, as he throws Darren's sword away while looking at him in disgust. "A small twist of the wrist is all it takes to break your concentration at your current level. Now lay down on the ground where you and your kind belong." Right before the captain stops talking, Darren is slammed into the ground by invisible force like the rest of us. For a moment, I see Darren's sword budging a few inches as he tries to make it fly back into his hand, but the pain in his wrist is clearly preventing him from focusing properly. The captain does not notice what Darren is trying to do, and instead he directs his attention towards Gontok, who is still fighting Hardwick. "Gontok," the captain shouts, "come here and help me destroy the ice wall behind me. The ambassador is trapped and can't get to safety." "I'm a little busy here, Captain," Gontok says, as he blocks Hardwick's fist with his right hand and then crouches to avoid a kick to his face. "Damn it," the captain says, and now he turns his gaze toward the sky, shouting loudly in the hopes that his voice will reach the earth elementalist. "Bolwick, can you hear me?" He waits for a few answers, but he gets no answer. "Of course he can't hear me," the commander says. "Ambassador, I'm afraid that you're going to have to go through the main street and then take the alley over there in order to return to your shelter. Do you understand? You're telling me to get even closer to these murderers while you're not there to protect me," the ambassador says. "What if they kill me?" "They're not going to kill you," the ambassador says. "They're all being immobilized, and I will make a small mobile barrier between you and them to protect you as you walk, just in case. Now please go to your shelter. Even I can't hold them like this forever." "I will go," the ambassador says, "but if anything happens to me, you will pay with your life, mark my words." "Duly noted," the ambassador says, as the ambassador now is heading into the street we are in so he can reach his shelter. "Ask Karaka if she can help Kate cancel the captain's aura manipulation technique like yesterday. Ask Darren if you can try summoning the sword with his uninjured hand instead." I don't think we should ask Karaka. I feel like, well, we will die and we'll see if that was the right option, but I think we should ask Darren because Araka is just going to make a scene. "Darren, can you try using your left hand to get your sword back?" I say in a low voice. "Yeah, I could give it a shot," Darren says. I then see his sword slowly being dragged across the ground towards him until a few seconds later, when the weapon completely changes direction, it flies straight into the captain's hand again. "Oh no, you don't," the captain says. "This sword is staying with me." All of a sudden, the captain and the ambassador both get surrounded by a golden cage. Oh boy, why is she here? Why is the golden fox here? No, wait. While that is the golden fox technique, I believe Luna can use it, right? The captain and the ambassador both get surrounded by a golden cage, which was most likely cast by Luna. Unfortunately, our situation does not change at all. The force pushing us down is still as strong as ever. "What?" Araka shouts furiously. Why would you that? Why would you cast the cage on him of all people? Have you learned nothing from my lesson? The captain says as he lightly touches one of the bar's cages. "I've seen this type of cage before. If I remember correctly, the spell is very vulnerable to aura manipulation technique, is it not? Let me see." He then does a short wave motion with his hands, and all the cage bars begin to bend until their shapes become distorted and turned into spiral. Soon afterward, the spiral starts spinning more and more rapidly until they become too blurry to see clearly. Eventually, the whole cage fades away into nothingness. "You should have paid more attention to whatever lessons that spirit in the amulet taught you," Luna says as he looks directly at Luna.